Just a, yeah, that's a full-time position. Good evening. Welcome to the regular meeting of the City Council. Today is January 5th, 2022. This meeting now comes to order. Please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance by Council Member Shepherd.
Heavenly Father, please help our country to eradicate the evil that's taken place in some of the large cities in our country. And thank you for continuing to bless the city of Cape Coral and our citizens, and by protecting our police officers and firemen and first responders and hospital people. Thank you very much. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam City Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Mayor Hunter,
Here.
Councilmembers Costa,
Here.
Hayden,
Here.
Long,
Here.
Nelson,
Here.
Shepherd,
here.
Here.
Welch,
Here.
all present.
Madam City Clerk, do we have any council members requesting to appear remotely? I understand that Councilmember Nelson would like to participate remotely since she was exposed to COVID, I believe.
Yes, Councilmember Nelson.
All right, do we have a motion to allow Councilmember Nelson to appear remotely?
So move.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is item 5, changes on the agenda. I will say that staff has asked to withdraw public hearing item 10A5, which is ordinance 77-21, so we will be withdrawing that item in tonight's agenda. Do we have any other changes, or do we have a motion to approve the agenda with that change?
Motion to approve the agenda with the change.
Any discussion? Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Shepherd,
Aye.
Hayden,
Aye.
Welch,
Aye.
Costa,
Aye.
Hunter,
Aye.
Hayden,
Aye.
Long,
Aye.
Nelson. 7 ayes, motion carries.
Aye.
For the record, 8 ayes, motion carries.
Thank you. Item 7 is approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting of December 15, 2021?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is item 8, which is citizens' input time. There's a maximum of 60 minutes is set for the input of citizens on the matters concerning city government, 3 minutes per individual. Please remember to state your name for the record. Anyone who wishes to participate in citizens' input, please use the podium to my left.
Whenever you're ready.
Go ahead, state your name, sir, and
My name is Joseph Tranquita, and with my associate Martha Hill, we are representing the Egret condominium at 215 Southeast 15th Place, Cape Coral 33990, and we are here again to urge the council to revamp the commercial aspect of our condominium, along with all of the others represented in case number LU 21-0003, ordinance 1521. All of these condos have been affected, as we are, by having this designation as commercial. We again urge you to return it to residential. We have discussed this before at other meetings where we can't sell the houses unless it's a cash deal, because the banks won't touch us. We can't well, that's in case of a catastrophe, hurricanes and stuff, we will be having a serious problem of dealing with insurance companies because, again, of the commercial designation. So it hurts us. And just this past weekend, we asked Waste Pro to pick up garbage that's overflowing for the last 2 weeks. When we called, we got a designation from them saying there would be no interruption of residential pickups for garbage. We are being commercial, we still not have been picked up 2 weeks running, and that is on the recycling. So again, I'm urging you to reconsider and give us for the future, now and for the future, a designation of residential.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk with you about a code that is very concerning to me, and it's the health and sanitation code.
Could you state your name, ma'am? Your name?
Oh, my name?
Yes,
Jermaine Siliuson.
thank you.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm just going to leave this with you because I'm losing my voice, and I'll tell you why. The home next to me has been abandoned since September 2020. The man passed away in 2021. And it's all mold up to the windowsills. Mold infested, rat infested, armadillo infested. I'm the next property next to it, and I'm having a hard time getting anybody to do something about it. And I understand, I just found this out yesterday, that a company over in Titusville has a flip and whatever you want to call it. They fix up homes and sell them. So right now I have no information about what's going on, but I wanted to report this to the city. And Ms. Nelson, if you want this, I'll give it to you. I have pictures and a whole documentation. Can I give that to you?
Mr. City Manager?
I'm sorry, if I could just ask the speaker to tell me the address of the house that she's complaining about?
The address of the house that is empty is 3808 Southeast 2nd Place, and I'm at 3804.
Okay. Well, thank you for bringing this to our attention. If you'd like, have a seat, and I'm sure we will have a staff member
Okay, 'cause
reach out and get the information that you have.
that'd be great. That'd
Thank
be
you.
great, because the house is overgrown with weeds and tree, not the weeds, they mow, but the trees and everything, it's really bad.
Okay. All
Where
right,
do I-
just have a seat, and a staff member will
Oh,
be
okay,
out to get that information.
okay.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak during citizens' input, please come forward.
Good afternoon. My name is Vincent Lehman. I'm here again about the ordinance for the changing of zoning from commercial to residential, which I own a property at 522 Northeast 15th Place. Is 2 houses off of Del Prado. It's like 2 blocks north of Burton Field and probably 2 blocks south of Pine Island Road. I had the property for over 40 years. When I bought it, it was residential. They switched it to Pine Island Corridor or something like that sometime in the early 90s. And that was okay with me. I'm in the construction business. I have trucks, trailers. Even right now, I still have 2 active licenses. So when they want to change, and I keep trailers on the site, my tool trailers for construction, lawn service. They wanted to change me back to residential. That's really going to hurt me because I had plans for it, like 8 more months to retire. My son's going to retire after 20 years in the military, and we planned on using that for our storage and, meeting places. I had no problem with almost everybody back in the neighborhood. It was probably really good for them, but for me, it's not. Once they rezoned me, once I got rezoned commercial, they tore down the whole block of house is right out in my front yard, and they put a strip mall up, and like a two-story, I don't know, I think it's a two-story daycare center now. Behind me, they must have had some consideration for the property behind me. I don't think they're rezoning that one back. It seems to be zoned now medical, but it's a construction place, and that's right out my backyard with dump trucks, construction trailers, and stuff of that nature. So again, I say, I think it's good for almost everybody else in the neighborhood that they're gonna change to residential. Me at this time, for what I had planned and how long I've kept that property for certain things, I just was probably asking for the same consideration that what people behind me have.
And could you repeat that address again, sir?
The address is 522 Northeast 15th Place, 33909.
Okay,
33
thank you.
33909. Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Francie Metzger. I live at 1615 Southeast 46th Lane, and I am here to ask about our trees. I've witnessed some of our trees being cut down, perfectly good trees. It happened at 1615 Southeast 47th Terrace. They cut down 2 trees when they said they were doing the sidewalks. I understand the sidewalks sometimes buckle, but those trees were not buckling the sidewalks that much. And I talked with Paul Nixon, very good employee of yours, and he also said that yes, they try to save the trees if they can. Also, Brian, the head of a crew group that has been working on a lot of other sidewalks in that area, has not bothered the trees. In fact, he's working around them and making the sidewalks go around the trees. So I'm concerned. I'm not a tree hugger, but I am concerned about trees. We need trees down here. It's a great thing for the carbon dioxide oxygen exchange, and it's hot. And so it makes a good sense to keep the good trees. But these 2 trees were they were in good health. They were not in bad shape at all. And I would like to volunteer to replace those 2 trees that were cut down. They were in the parking, so my understanding is anything in the parking belongs to the city. I heard that the owner of the building at 1615 Southeast 47th Terrace requested that the trees go. But I think that there are trees that don't bother the roots. I've been told that the roots are not bothering the sidewalks as much. So again, I'm Francie Metzger. I'm happy to pay for 2 trees because I think when we take them down, it's a good idea to replace them if it can. I don't know how many seconds, minutes I have left. I have one other item. Can I go for a little longer, Mayor?
Yes, I haven't heard the buzzer.
Pardon me?
Yes,
You haven't
ma'am.
heard I didn't know if there was a buzzer. Okay. Anyway, Kohl's, anyone that goes to Kohl's, to get out of Kohl's parking lot going west is literally treacherous. You're going on to Nicholas, I think it is there. And I'm not encouraging lights. Nobody likes lights, but something's got to happen there because somebody's going to get slammed or killed because it's a tough one to get out of the Kohl's parking lot there. I don't know what can be done about it. I've had several people say things to me about it, and I said, yeah, I experienced it too, but that's just something I think that maybe the city or people should look at and address somehow. Another item is I live in that area of not Kohl's, but back to 46th Lane. At the end of 47th Terrace, Southeast 47th Terrace, where 17th Place comes, there's a stop sign. I don't know why. Very rarely do people stop. So I know the police watch that, and I appreciate that they do, but it's kind of comical. I mean, I walk my dog in that area. It's treacherous at times. They just roll right around that corner. So let's see, I'm thinking I have one more item, but am I still on seconds? Am I good yet? Nope, buzzer. I'll come back another time. Thank you. Francie Metzger.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good evening. My name is Ken McClendon. I live at 3538 Southwest 17th Avenue. This question that I have to the City Council, and it's apparently that gentleman here that everybody knows, he's I think was a public figure a few years ago. But I live on the backside of the Aspire property on 17th Ave. Essentially what the question is this evening is they're going to be asking to change a corner at Savona, Chiquita, and 34th Avenue back to some type of commercial. Currently, it was supposedly mislabeled as multifamily. Well, my question is, since I live on that backside and everything that was in that current area, that the side of the street, which is on the canal side, all changed, and another gentleman that lives in my neighborhood is here also, or a couple more, was changed somehow years ago from single family to multifamily, and now we have duplexes. They're trying to change that corner to commercial. The other end of the lot at the Aspire property is all commercial. We have a school that's behind, cars back up through there all day long. Cars and buses are going down on the commercial side on the north side of that property. They're trying to change this corner lot to commercial. So my question is, are we putting in a McDonald's, a gas station, something else that's going to cause more traffic and more problems for that current property? So now Newcomb's coming back to City Council to ask you to change something when you change something on me from single family to multifamily. Now I have a duplex that's next door to me. Thank you very much and have a nice day.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak during citizens' input, please come forward. Seeing none, citizens' input is now closed. Is there any council discussion on citizens' input? Councilmember Shepherd.
I just want to say thank you to the people that came out, took time to come to the council meeting today and educate us on some issues. And I'm sure we'll look into all of them. Also want to thank the citizen that offered to donate to beautifying our city. Thank you very much for being a citizen that wants to give back to the community. I appreciate hearing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion during citizens' input? Okay, we'll move on to the next item. Item 9A is consent agenda. I'll now open up the consent agenda for council to pull any items, or if there's no items to pull, to see if there's a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Any discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Aye.
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 Hi, Mayor, I'm sorry, I'm not able to hear Kimberly when she's calling. I just go after Councilmember Long. I just don't know if her microphone is on.
Okay, that'll be fine. Thank you. Okay, we will move on to item 9B, which is personnel actions, resolution 11-22. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. This item before you is a relatively simple item. We're just changing the job title from Economic Development Manager to Economic and Business Development Officer to reflect the fact that this position also works to strengthen our local businesses and also to adopt terminology that's more consistent with their counterparts in the private sector. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve resolution 11-22?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Aye.
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 Okay, item C is petitions to council. I don't see any listed, so we'll move on to item 9D, which is appointments to boards and committees. The first one on the list is the Community Development Block Grant. There are 5 vacancies, and Madam City Clerk, I will turn it over to you.
Yes, Your Honor, today we have 5 vacancies for the Community Development Block Grant item. There are 5 applicants. Several are here today if the council desires to interview them. We have Robert Bridges, Darlene Hughes
Okay, I guess, want to bring up each individual, or is there a motion? Councilmember Welsh.
Yes, Kimberly, I know that there's some stipulations on who can run for certain seats of this. Are there any of the applicants that, where we would vote between the two of them, or all five separate for their own significant roles in the CDBG?
So on the community development block grant item, it is my understanding that the vacancies are all, there's not a specific category for each member. Two of them are current members seeking reappointment. That's Mr. Hartman and Ms. Hill. Let me see if I have any more details here. Just one moment. I'm going to look up the classification for this board. I'll just be one moment.
Sure.
Yeah, knowing we had a hard time keeping that board filled last year, if we have five that all classify immediate, only five willing today. As long as that's okay, I'd probably make the motion to approve all five.
So I will say that when this board was filled over the years, they all have the same expiration date. So at the least, to keep the board having the ability to meet, we'd need enough for quorum, which is 3 members. And as I mentioned, I've received 5 applications. And one more second, and I can tell you all about the CDBG. So it's a 5-member board that reviews and makes recommendations to City Council concerning distribution of CDBG money and SHIP. Their goal is to provide a fair and equitable distribution of funds to various nonprofit organizations which benefit Cape Coral and its citizens. Their meetings are set by an action plan schedule for the calendar year and have additional meetings as necessary. When their calendar is put together, we do survey the board to find out their availability, and I do need 3 for a meeting.
Okay, with that being said, I'd like to make a motion to approve all 5 applicants.
Second.
I'll second that.
Councilmember Cosden.
I was just going to do the same thing. Having reviewed the applications, I don't think we need to have them come up. I think we can appoint all 5.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Shepherd?
Aye.
Tate?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
Cosden?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried.
Okay, the next item on the agenda for appointments is the Golf Course Advisory Board. I think we have 2 vacancies. Madam City Clerk?
Yes, Your Honor. For the Golf Course Advisory Board, I have 1 application and 2 vacancies. Gary Cittadino is here today if council would have any questions for him, but he has included his application for appointment and is very eager to fill in for some resignations that we received.
Okay, so we have 2 vacancies and 1 applicant, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is there a motion, or do we?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Gary.
Second?
Okay, any further discussion? Councilmember Tate,
No, that was to make the motion,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
any further discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Shepherd?
Aye.
Tate?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
Cosden?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried.
Okay, we move on to item 9E, follow-up items for city management. E1 is water quality. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is time for your regular briefing on water quality issues within Cape Coral. So I'm going to ask Mr. Mike Ilchizen, your interim director of Public Works, and his staff, Dr. Maya Robert, to come to the podium and give you the latest update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Maya Robert, Public Works. Water quality in the Caloosahatchee River and estuary is good. The Army Corps have been doing a great job in the past months to sustain healthy sanilities in the dry season. Something that was not mentioned in your memo, we got an email on Monday afternoon. The Army Corps will hold a meeting for the stakeholders for the Lake Okeechobee System Operation Manual, and we will be discussing and kicking off involvement of local government and stakeholders for the operation plan of the lake. So we'll be moving forward with this in the next year. Bubble curtain updates. So maybe out of the 10 location bubble curtains we have, we had the one location at the Mandolin Canal that has been for operation for a few months now. These past few weeks, we received 3 new bubble curtains. We are awaiting a Department of Environmental Protection final decision on location for state submerged land before issuance of the permit. And for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permit, they have stated that they will issue the permit. Now it's just a matter of time to issue the permit. If you have any question, I will answer as much as I can.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much for the update. Okay, the next item on the agenda is item 10, ordinances and resolutions. Item 10A is ordinance 51-21. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 51-21, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral Comprehensive Plan by amending the future land use map from commercial/professional to multifamily residential land use for property described as lots 15 through 27, block 1458, unit 16, lots 45 through 52 and 59 through 72, block 1322, unit 18, lots 1 through 24 and 31 through 34, block 3083, unit 62, and lots 1 through 22, block 4454, unit 63. From commercial/professional to single-family residential land use for property described as lots 1 through 26, block 4448, unit 63, and lots 1 through 8 and 12 through 20, block 3169, unit 66, from multifamily residential to commercial activity center land use for property described as lots 15 through 22, block 4685, unit 70, from multifamily residential to single-family residential land use for property described as lots 1 through 44, block 4727, unit 70, from Pine Island Road District to single-family residential land use for property described as lots 42 through 61, block 1501, unit 47, part 1, lots 1 through 32, block 3570, unit 47, part 1, lots 1 through 18, 22 through 34, and 37 through 45, block 3571, unit 47, part 1, lots 1 through 8 and 21 through 26, block 3575, unit 47, part 1, lots 19 through 21, block 3571, unit 47, part 4, lots 3 through 10, block 2030, unit 31, part 2, and lots 24 through 46, block 4560, unit 68, all in Cape Coral subdivision, providing severability and an effective date.
Thank you. Mr. Struve? Evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Happy New Year to you and council. For the record, Mike Struve, Planning Team Coordinator with the Planning Division. This case is a city-initiated future land use map amendment. Covers 41.25 acres, and it would be an adoption hearing, the final hearing tonight, should you choose to approve these changes. This case involves multiple properties in 14 different blocks, as I mentioned earlier, covering over 40 acres. In most instances, and we'll look at this in a little greater detail in a bit, the city proposes changing properties with either a commercial or a mixed-use future land use classification to a residential future land use classification, by and large to recognize existing long-standing residential development patterns in these blocks. In 2 instances, the future land use classification will be amended or is proposed to be amended to bring the new future land use classification into consistency with the existing zoning. As a result, for most of these blocks, the city-initiated rezoning will be needed to bring the existing zoning into consistency with the new future land use classification. Those cases are underway, and I'll also allude to that a little bit later in my presentation. This is the summary of the proposed changes. I'm not going to go over each and every line, but 80% of the land involves a land use change from either the Pine Island Road District, which is a mixed-use future land use classification, or the commercial professional future land use classification to a residential future land use classification, either single family or multifamily. Now, what does this mean in terms of loss of land? If you look at the net change, the column on the right-hand side of the screen, there'll be a net increase in land with a single-family future land use classification of a little over 28 acres, and that will come at the expense of a corresponding loss of land from the Pine Island Road District, a little over 18 acres, and about a 15-acre loss of land with a commercial professional future land use classification. Staff is very concerned, we know council is very concerned about losing any mixed use or commercial land. So why are we doing this? The reason for this primarily is because these areas where we are proposing a land use change are built out with residential development. And that goes back in some cases to properties that have been developed back in the late 70s. And sometime after those properties were developed, the city changed the land either to a commercial professional or to the Pine Island Road District, which occurred back in 2002, with the idea being that at some point along the line, those properties would be redeveloped. And that new development would consist of commercial uses of some type, office, retail, restaurant, whatever the case may be. Well, that's never been realized. It's never happened, and there's several factors, I think, for that. But it also seems maybe even less likely to occur in the short term moving forward now with the prices of residential properties and single-family homes and so on. So these are all areas that are largely built out with residential development, not necessarily single-family homes, but also duplexes, and at least one condominium, being the Egret condominium. Many of these sites share similar characteristics. Many of them are small, meaning they are platted 2 and 3 lot sites. When we looked at these sites individually, we saw little to no property assembly, which is important because we wanted to make sure that someone was not investing time and money acquiring or assembling property with the idea that in a year or two they would be building a large commercial project. We saw no evidence of that, and we've heard from no one through several public hearings that anyone had any intent in doing that. And then lastly, most of these sites have frontage along local streets. So in general, these are areas where we would prefer not to introduce a lot of new commercial traffic to. And from a little different perspective, it also makes these sites a little less desirable for mixed use and commercial development because they don't have a whole lot of visibility, and a lot of commercial uses really depend on or desire highly visible sites. This shows where these sites are located. There are 14. They are scattered somewhat throughout the city. There is only one north of Pine Island Road. 7 of the sites, you'll see, are clustered along the east side of the property, near or along Del Prado Boulevard. The other 7 are scattered in the central portion of the city, south of Pine Island Road. I want to go a little bit over the project history because this case has had sort of a strange ride associated with it. This case originally went to the Planning and Zoning Commission back in June. The commission voted 6-1 to recommend at that time approval to you. The case then went to the City Council in July 28th, and you had voted 7-0 at that point to recommend transmittal of this case. Two sort of weird things happened along the way. One, we did not notice the case properly initially, so that's why we went back to Planning and Zoning and are back before you today. The other thing that you should be aware of too is that state legislation also changed during the time period, or at least during the time period in which we were analyzing this and developing our case report and scheduling this initially before the Planning and Zoning Commission. This went to you initially as a large-scale future land use map amendment. State legislation changed this past year. Anything under 50 acres can now be considered small-scale. So that's the reason why this would be an adoption hearing. I mentioned earlier that a number of these properties will require a follow-up rezoning initiative by the city. We have already begun to do so. We have 2 cases that will handle all of the properties that need a rezoning. And those 2 cases have been to the hearing examiner, have gotten favorable reviews, and are sort of waiting now in abeyance to see what the outcome of this particular case is this evening. I could go through each of the 14 map series if you'd like. I can again mention that when the Planning and Zoning Commission most recently heard this case on October 6th, the commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval of this case to you. We had 2 speakers at public hearing at that time. One speaker had a property just off of Chiquita Boulevard. It had consistent zoning and consistent land use. We had actually proposed to change the land use. He had plans that were ready to be submitted to the city for a duplex, and since he had consistent zoning and land use, and he requested that we removed his property from this ordinance, we did so. We also received a phone call from him earlier this week just to confirm that that was done, and that has been done. The other person that spoke at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, I believe, was Mr. Lehman, who expressed at that meeting some concern. He's the gentleman, I believe, that has property off of Northeast 15th Place, and I believed he had expressed some concern at that meeting as well as about potentially losing the ability to protect an activity that involves parking commercial vehicles on a residential zone site. Should this land use amendment be approved and the subsequent rezoning be approved, that activity would no longer be allowed. And if you'd like me to go over each of the individual map series, I can. Otherwise, I stand by in case you have questions.
The only question I have, Mr. Struve, the address at 522 Northeast 15th Place that I believe that you were referencing. Can you show us where that is on the map, please?
You probably can't see it. Let me go to this more detailed.
I see the aerial there next to it.
Yeah. So it would be the first property in here from Del Prado Boulevard that is covered by this land use amendment that you see here.
So when you turn off of Del Prado onto Northeast 4th Terrace, is that
Oh, wait
where?
a second. Let me have the wrong.
I thought he said his address was 522 Northeast 15th Place.
It's on slide 12.
And my question, is that an improved lot now?
It is improved, yes.
And it's improved with a single-family dwelling or a
Yes.
multifamily?
there it is, right here. So Mayor, it is this site right here.
Okay. And that's an improved site with a single-family dwelling?
Yes.
Okay. That's the only question that I had. Is there any other, yeah, I'm going to open up public hearing, but. Okay. Yeah, I'll now open up public hearing. Anyone wish to speak on this particular item, please come forward. This was reference to ordinance 51-21.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Joe Mazurkas, President of BJM Consulting, here on behalf of Newcomb Real Properties. The owner of Block 4685, lots 15 through 22. I think it's important that you have a little history on this. This is at the immediate northwest corner of Chiquita and Savona. Chiquita being what will be a 6-lane thoroughfare, and Savona, which is going to be a 4-lane collector. This particular property was part of a larger tract. The tract was split apart to allow the development of the Aspire apartment complex. This was originally all collectively turned into a CAC, both this piece and the piece to the north, in 2010. In 2018, a request was made to take the large tract where the Aspire condo apartments are and turn that back to multifamily. By a Scribner's error, this portion of the southern part of that parcel was included, the block 4685, 15 to 22, and the change was made from CAC back to multifamily to coincide with the parcel to the north. We found the problem, we found the mistake, and we corrected it before zoning, so the site has maintained its neighborhood commercial zoning, which is compatible with the CAC since 2010. This change, this specific change as requested in Ordinance 5121, will bring this property's land use into a point to where it will be consistent with the zoning that has existed since 2010. Newcomb Real Properties is not a developer, but they are marketing the property. They believe this property, when the land use and zoning is consistent, would make a great site for a restaurant, professional office space looking down all the way down that canal. It would be a high-end piece of property because of its accessibility to the and access to the 2 major thoroughfares in the city. Setting that aside, if I can just talk as somebody who's been dealing with land use and development for almost 35 years in the city and trying to talk about why some of these properties change back and forth, especially commercial, non-commercial. Since the city's comprehensive land use plan in 1988, the city has tried to identify tracts of property, full blocks of property, that would better serve the community as a whole if they were commercial rather than residential. In essence, we thought if we would include and make the land use change proactively, the market would follow the land use change. I can tell you historically that has not occurred. The market is the market is the market. The use is going to be determined by the market, and that's really indicative of case law associated with takings of property is the highest and best use. The highest and best use is determine the market value. And so really it's the market that determines the use of properties. And when the city has, unfortunately, I have to admit, we went back and we tried to drive the market back in the 1989 comprehensive plan. The city tried it again, I think in 2010. And you fixed most of that in 2018 and brought it back to where the market was driven. These individual parcels that you're seeing in this particular ordinance today, the majority of them are identifying those parcels that have not reacted to the market, and that in addition to that, the existing development of those areas are predominantly different than what the future land use and zoning is. So this is bringing, once again, a market-driven focus to land use and zoning, which is really the way it has to happen. I don't see, at least the experience in the city of Cape Coral, in my 35 years, I've never seen the city be able to drive the market by proactively changing land use and zoning. So I think all of these changes are good changes, and specifically on behalf of my client, I respectfully request that you support and adopt ordinance 51-21. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on ordinance 51-21? Please come forward.
Yes, once again, my name is Ken McClendon. I live at 3538 Southwest 17th Avenue. It's right around the corner from this property that he's talking about. He says it's a high-end marketable piece of property, although there's residential built right up to the edge of it, all the way around the corner. They may want to use it for commercial or an office building. Right up at the corner, we have the 7-Eleven store and a Dollar General. We also have a storage unit. So if that's the high-end commercial property that's going to be used for, great. Down the street, we have another Dollar General and some more commercial property. I don't get it. Once again, my property changed from single family on that canal that he's talking about they want to look down, on that canal that they want to look down to commercial property. They changed mine from single family whenever it occurred. You guys can tell me, but I can't really tell you that, and Gary can't tell you when it happened either, is that it changed from single family to multifamily. Now we got a corner up here that they want to change back because there was some kind of an issue or a problem, there was a misunderstanding, my client, whatever, I got it. Want to change it back from multifamily or what it currently is to move it to commercial. So, you change mine, you help them, everybody goes away fine, and we're still left holding the bag. Thank you very much.
Anyone else wishing to speak on ordinance 51-21? Please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
Motion to approve 5121.
Second.
Okay. Councilmember Welsh.
Thank you, Mayor. If Mr. Strube could put that slide number 12 up again, that showed, yep, right there. So you'd pointed out that the very bottom right was that gentleman's property, but I'm showing that as 609 Northeast 15th Court. When I look on Google for his 522 Northeast 15th Place, it is the property that's right below it. So I don't believe that his property is being changed to single family.
It's slide 11. He showed us the wrong slide.
I think the correct slide's up now.
Oh, yeah.
I had the incorrect slide up
14, yeah.
initially,
So
Councilmember Welsh.
it's the correct one, but that bottom right piece of property isn't the one that the gentleman lives at. He actually lives below on 15th Place, which to me is still staying on Pine Island Road corridor. So I don't believe his property is actually a part of this.
Mr. Mayor, may I? Or Bob, may I?
So I, as much as I'd like to help him keep it, I think he's already in that. So I don't see any problem with his property there, and it's unfortunate the gentleman who lives on Chiquita and Savona, but I think that is a great area to turn to commercial, especially with those apartments there. If we could generate either some medical office or anything like that on Chiquita, which is primarily, should be a commercial road, especially going to 6 lanes. I have no problem with either of those, so I'm definitely for this, and we'll support it the way it is.
Councilmember Tate.
So I just wanted to confirm that in this 5121, the Egret condominium solution is there for them.
Yes.
That's what I believe. Okay, so I'm in full support. I've lived here long enough and been here long enough to see exactly what Mr. Mazurkowitz was saying. You try to do commercial and it doesn't work. You have to bring it back into conforming with the residents in the neighborhoods. And I'm
Yeah, to answer your question in a little greater detail, Councilmember Tate, there current future land use classification is commercial professional. I think the gentleman during public input mentioned they had perhaps experienced some problems in the past with financing, refinancing,
It is.
sales, that type of thing. This ordinance would change the land use from commercial professional to multifamily, and it should take care of that issue to a
Yeah,
large
there are
extent.
several areas in the city that we have the same thing, and they can't get insurance, and if, because of it would burn down, the zoning and land use don't match. So I'm in full support of this. Thank you.
Councilmember Cosden.
Thank you, Mayor. I was trying to speak earlier just to correct Councilmember Welsh. The slide is slide 11. That's the slide that has that man's address. So we saw the wrong picture. So I just want to make sure when we're making our decision, we're looking at the right image. So could you please go to slide 11? Because slide 14 has Northeast 15th Court. He lives on 15th Place. His house is in this group. It's the second one. Oh, my slide 11 is different. The packet that I have is different.
Yeah, I had to reorganize the beginning a little bit, so I really think that this right here.
So it's the one that says block 3570 at the top of it. So that's not the one that this man lives in. 3570. There it is.
There it is.
So he is the second house in on the top, just so we're all clear.
That's it.
So there's a house, and I wanted to ask, what is that first house? That's part of it, right? So if we were to exclude this gentleman, we would be spot zoning. So we'd have this whole block that was consistent and one property that was different, right? That's what he's asking for? And
He's requesting to be removed from this particular map series, yes, so.
Now, you mentioned that there was another property owner that asked to be removed, and they were, and I'm assuming that's because staff agreed with their request?
Yes, and that was next to the Newcomb property. And the Newcomb property currently has a multifamily future land use classification. We're proposing to change that to CAC. Because this other property was directly adjacent to it, initially, we were also going to request that that property, or recommend that that property likewise be changed to CAC.
Right.
What we discovered after we talked to the owner is that they had immediate plans to develop the property and could do so because they had zoning that matched their existing land use.
Understood.
Multifamily zoning, or I should say RML zoning with a multifamily future land use classification. And when we found that out, we decided to remove that from the ordinance.
That's very different from this one.
It
and
is
so-
different from this.
So would you agree that it would not be a good idea, planning-wise, to leave this one out of this group?
From a planning perspective, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because the impression or the conclusion one might draw from this, if you were to exclude this one property from the other ones, is that you would be doing that at the sole benefit of one property owner and not necessarily what is good for the community.
Okay, thank you. So as much as I want to help that gentleman, and I wish he had stayed, I think he thought we were done after citizens' input. I don't think it would be a good idea to go down that route, but he could always initiate a private change, right? Isn't that still an option that he has?
He could do that, and despite what I just said, Councilmember Costin, I want to emphasize that that decision is, rests with you too, regardless of what our professional opinion is on this matter.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Struve, it appears we have 16 parcels here that we are looking at, and it appears that all 16 parcels are improved. And it appears in the photo that a majority of them are all single-family. Is that correct?
To the best of my knowledge, Mayor, that's correct. And yes, the slide here shows that all 16 properties are improved.
Yeah. And I wish the homeowner was still here, but I think probably the reason that the homeowner is asked to keep this in the same zoning that it is now, because he had mentioned trailers and trucks there. So even though this lot is improved by single family, I think what his desire was still to be able to live there as a single family dwelling and bring trucks and trailers there. So for that reason, I don't think that's a good enough reason to exclude this particular property. And also, I think when you look at zoning issues, you try to look what's best for the area, not necessarily for one particular individual. So with that being said, I'll support the ordinance as it is. Is there any other discussion on that? And the only thing that I would like to maybe make a recommendation to the city manager in the future, you know, when we have these zoning cases, especially you take this particular case here, you know, there's so many different areas of the city that we're looking at one time. I think it would be at a benefit if we could do those separately, because we may disagree with one aspect of what you're bringing forward and agree with some of the other ones, so you're almost tying our hands, so to speak, to some degree. So I think that would be my recommendation for any future. You know, if we're doing a whole block, great. But when we're jumping at so many different areas throughout the city, it may be advantageous that we could go through each one of those areas and be able to discuss them. So that would be my recommendation.
If I may, Mayor,
Yes.
we received a similar comment from planning and zoning. And so with the rezoning case, there'll be a follow-up to this. We broke that rezoning case into two separate case reports, and there'll be two separate public hearings. One will be that group of 7 blocks that are clustered along Del Prado near Pine Island Road, and then the other 7 will be those 7 sort of scattered sites, if you will, that are located in central Cape Coral, because you're right, it makes it a little difficult to follow, and you certainly don't want people commenting on one case on one side of the city and having no interest maybe in what's going on in the other side.
Yes. Madam City Attorney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly your point is well taken concerning trying to facilitate the ease of understanding these. I just wanted the record to be clear that your hands are not tied with respect to it, because if there are 4 different areas or 5 different areas, you're free to remove individual sites or individual areas from it. I'm just for the record, it doesn't come as a package deal.
Yeah, once I said that, I realized that I know our hands aren't tied, but I just think it would be easier for future hearings to be able to separate them. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Madam City Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Shepherd?
Aye.
Tate?
Aye.
Welch?
Aye.
Cosden?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, we'll move on to ordinance 74-21. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 74-21, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral Comprehensive Plan by amending the future land use map from commercial, a Lee County designation, to Pine Island Road District land use for property described as 2 parcels of land lying in Section 5, Township 44 South, Range 24 East, Lee County, Florida, as more particularly described herein. Property located at 1930 Northeast Pine Island Road and 1352 through 1356 Del Pine Drive, providing severability and an effective date.
Hey, good evening, Mayor, City Council. For the record, Chad Boyko, Principal Planner with the city's Planning Division. Just stand by as I get this PowerPoint loaded up for you. This is a privately initiated map amendment. The applicant for this, and just for the record, we found out just a very short while ago that the property had changed ownership hands since this had gone to the Planning and Zoning Commission. In a rush, we acquired the new application documents that showed the new ownership and that they still were interested in pursuing this future land use map amendment. We do not have those uploaded to Novus, but after this hearing, we will provide those to the city clerk. We will also be providing our updated PowerPoint so that the record is clear throughout this, so that it shows that the new ownership group is still willing to pursue this future land use map amendment. So the applicant for this is Halley Properties LLC. it's different than the previous owner, which was Paul and Joan Campbell. They sold this a little bit ago to this new ownership group who actually had pursued this annexation and bringing this property into the city. You had heard this annexation around 4 to 5 months ago. This is a site along Pine Island Road. The size of the site is 1.31 acres. The location is at the intersection of Del Pine Drive and Pine Island Road. It's within the transition area of the urban services designation, which means that there is utilities available to this site. And then the applicant's request is a future land use map amendment from commercial, which is a Lee County designation, to Pine Island Road District, or PARD. An aerial map, if I can make this bigger for everyone. In any case, the aerial map, it's currently a site that was annexed approximately a few months ago. There is a portion of the site that has frontage on Pine Island Road. It was developed with what was an old sort of statutorium or crematorium, or not crematorium, concrete selling, where they sold statues and things like that. It's just east of the Target shopping center along Pine Island Road. The surrounding zoning of the site is mostly commercial corridor, but there are some sites that are currently still within unincorporated Lee County. And then the maps that you have here is you have the current future land use, which is Lee County, which is commercial, which is a Lee County designation. It's indicated by the area in white since we don't have a representation color for that. And then the proposed future land use is Pine Island Road District, which is indicated in the purple. Some quick findings of fact: the site was recently annexed into Cape Coral, as I mentioned earlier. The applicant is seeking to develop this commercially. They already have submitted a site plan for this project as we speak. It does have some frontage on Pine Island Road, and then the site retains that future land use and zoning from Lee County up until the city of Cape Coral adopts changes to those designations. And lastly, staff finds that the site would be considered a extension of our commercial node along Northeast Pine Island Road. The Pine Island Road District encourages mixed-use development and commercial development at key intersections along Pine Island Road. It sets a maximum FAR of 1.25. If the site were to develop at that maximum intensity, you'd be looking at around 71,000 square feet. The proposed use for this will be much less intense than that. I believe they're looking for an auto repair shop to be developed at this site. We also looked at the future land use element policy 1.14, which is the commercial siting guidelines. Staff finds that the site is consistent with 4 guidelines within this policy: major intersection, compactness, assembly, and ownership pattern. Staff finds the site is partially consistent with 3 guidelines: adequate depth, intrusion, and access. And then staff finds that the site is not consistent with 1 guideline, which is integration. Our recommendation is approval of the future land use map amendment. We also had this heard by the Planning and Zoning Commission several months ago. They recommend approval by a vote of 7-0. There was some delay in getting this to public hearing as we were still waiting for the property rights element to be adopted by City Council and then reviewed by the state. So there was some lag time if you see, when this was submitted, when this had gone to Planning and Zoning, and now when it's finally being brought to Council. But I'm here for any further questions if you have them.
I'll now open a public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 74-21? Please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 74-21?
Motion to approve 74-21.
Second.
Is there any council discussion? Councilmember Tate.
The portion that's going to be on Pine Island Road, when you say auto repair, have they already submitted their application? I know you probably can't bind this, but to have cars lined up on Pine Island Road, like the ones we have in the CRA that are misplaced on Pine Island Road, is there any stipulation as to how that entry will be?
We do, if I'm correct, I believe for auto repair within the commercial corridor, we do have some standards that are built into the use that state that you cannot have any sort of outdoor storage or display of vehicles and or materials that are utilized for automotive repair shops.
Okay, so on Pine Island Road itself, that would give it more of an aesthetic look.
Correct, yes.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
Seeing no other discussion, and we have a motion and a second on the floor. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Shepherd?
Aye.
Tate?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
Cosden?
Aye.
Gunter,
Aye.
Hayden,
Aye.
Long,
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, we'll move on to ordinance 98-21. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 98-21, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral Land Development Code by amending Article 4, Zoning Districts, Chapter 1, General Provisions, Section 4.1.6, Uses by Zoning District, Use Hierarchy, Table 4.1.6, Use Table, regarding industrial business centers by amending Article 4, Zoning Districts, Chapter 2, Specific Regulations by District, Section 4.2.11, Commercial Corridor, regarding industrial business centers by amending Article 5, Development Standards, Chapter 2, Accessory Structures, Section 5.2.7, Fences and Walls, regarding fences and walls in the non-residential and mixed-use zoning districts by amending Article 5, Development Standards, Chapter 11, Conditional Uses, to create Section 5.11.13, Industrial Business Centers, regarding the establishment of zoning regulations for industrial business centers, and by amending Article 11, Definitions, Chapter 1, General Provisions, Section 11.2, Definitions, regarding industrial business centers, providing severability and an effective date. The second and final public hearing will be January 19th, 2022.
All right, good evening, Mayor, City Council. For the record, Chad Boyko, Principal Planner with the City's Plan Division. This is a city-initiated text amendment, Ordinance 98-21. This adds the industrial business center use as a conditional use in the commercial corridor zoning district. This was sort of an economic development initiative in order to sort of expand some of the allowed uses that we would have in the commercial corridor area. What the industrial business centers are really meant to be is sort of a combination of your light industrial or manufacturing uses. You could have like cabinetry, upholstery, food production, and combining them, most of the industrial uses that we have do not allow for things like retail, office, and display areas. So we were trying to come up with a use that would provide sort of like a one-stop shop for different developers. This could be like if you had flex space, but you also wanted to do some manufacturing in there. Just open up the options and the flexibility that's available for development in the commercial corridor area. This could also be developed in conjunction with warehouse for some storage of materials and goods, either generally within the framework of the building. The industrial business center would not allow for the heavy industrial uses, which we generally classify as producing or utilizing hazardous chemicals or materials. Some of the conditions with the industrial business center, we can see this as a conditional use. It avoids the special exception process that is currently in the commercial corridor now for light industrial uses. What we did is we looked at if we were going to have a special exception request for some of those uses within the commercial corridor. We looked at what we would want to see out of a development, and then instead of requiring them to go to a public hearing, which could be more time and more money to the potential developer, we just put those conditional uses into the land development code so that they could have just sort of an administrative approval, so long as they gave us the requirements that we were looking for. Some of those conditions that we were looking to implement are a 6-foot perimeter wall. This way, because you have the commercial corridor that is adjacent to some single-family homes, we wanted to make sure that those homes were still had some buffering and protection from perhaps some of the more intrusive style uses that you have. So we thought that a 6-foot perimeter wall would alleviate most of those concerns in terms of like noise and visual aspect into the site. We are also going to require enhanced landscaping for these types of uses. There would be some restrictions on the locations of where work could be done on these sites, primarily making sure that most of the work was conducted inside the building. And then lastly, we were going to have a prohibition on outdoor storage, so you didn't have some sites sort of overrun with materials or goods or things like that, and make sure we have a nice, attractive site with this style use. Our recommendation is that Ordinance 90-21 would streamline some development opportunities and chance by not requiring a public hearing that is currently in place with the special exception process for these light industry or manufacturing type uses. Pine Island Road is one of our commercial corridors that's growing, and we see lots of interest in things like flex space and some industrial style uses. We want to make sure that the corridor can be developed in an efficient and also an attractive manner so that it benefits both the residents and the business owners and developers that we have within the city. Planning staff recommends approval of this ordinance, and then similarly, the Planning and Zoning Commission also recommended approval of this ordinance by a vote of 7-0. There were no speakers at the P&Z hearing, and there has been no correspondence on this as of yet.
I'll now open up public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 98-21? Please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed.
Motion to approve ordinance 9821?
We don't need a motion because this is the first of 2 hearings.
Correct, yes, the final adoption hearing. For the next hearing, I can just come up and, if I can just say what it is, and then it'll just roll on through. So I just want to give you a presentation for this case, and then the next hearing, it'll be, much more quicker.
Right, so we don't need a motion, Councilmember Tate. We'll do that on January 19th. And Councilmember Shepherd.
Yeah, I just had a question. Would chlorine be considered?
That currently would probably be considered a hazardous material or chemical. It depends on if they were utilizing that if they were producing it as a byproduct. I know we do have some chlorine dispensaries currently within the industrial area that are classified as like light industry. This would be if they were perhaps utilizing that in the making of various products. I'm not a scientist. I don't know what chlorine would be used for, or if the chlorine was a byproduct where they would have to sort of discharge that in that kind of manner.
Yeah, I'm only asking because I noticed large tanks of chlorine behind like pool supply stores. They're like a retail setting.
Correct.
And the tanks are usually a pretty good size. You probably 4,000 or 5,000 gallon tanks.
Correct. And there's already, with those type uses, there's already some conditions for safety that are done through the fire code in terms of how they store the chlorine and the protections they have, so you don't have vehicles backing into them and knocking over the tanks and causing
So they
some sort of
wouldn't be,
spill.
a facility that would want to move into this location wouldn't be excluded if?
Correct. Like a pool supply store would still be allowed to go in there, or you do have some wholesale distribution of the chlorine to the pool supply stores. Those uses would still be allowed. We're looking at uses, the heavy industrial uses being excluded that would utilize the chlorine or similar style substances or chemicals, in their, if they're making things with that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the final public hearing will be held on January 19th, 2022. So we'll move on to ordinance 102-21. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 102-21, an ordinance repealing Ordinance 88-21, which approved and granted to South Florida Water Management District a perpetual conservation easement in order to approve and grant to South Florida Water Management District a new perpetual conservation easement upon property owned by the city located in Section 4, Township 45 South, Range 23 East, Lee County, Florida, as more particularly described herein, authorizing and directing the mayor to execute the deed of conservation easement passive recreational uses. A copy of the deed of conservation easement passive recreational uses is attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference, providing severability and an effective date.
Ms. Andrews?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Dawn Andrews with the Property Management Division. Ordinance 102-21 is to repeal Ordinance 88-21 and approves and grants a perpetual conservation easement to the South Florida Water Management District upon a portion of the Oasis Woods Park, which is now known as Joe Coviello Park. Back in October 2021, staff had brought forward and council had approved Ordinance 88-21. Subsequent to the approval of 88-21, the South Florida Water Management District revised the legal description of the conservation easement to remove the parking area, restrooms, and a stormwater pond, creating a need to bring the ordinance forward again. The conservation easement has been reduced from 27.87 acres down to 26.65 acres, and I can stand by for questions.
I'll now open up public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 102-21? Please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 102-21?
Second.
Any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Shepherd?
Aye.
Tate?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
Cosden?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ordinance 77-21 has been withdrawn and will return to City Council at a later date. We move on to item 10B, which is introductions. We have ordinance 75-21. Madam City Clerk, please read the title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 75-21, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral Comprehensive Plan by amending the future land use map from single-family/multifamily to commercial activity center land use for property described as a tract or parcel of land lying in a portion of the northeast quarter of Section 36, Township 43 South, Range 22 East, Lee County, Florida, being more particularly described herein. Property located at 4120 and 4140 Kismet Parkway, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be January 19th, 2022.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 78-21. Madam City Clerk, please read the title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 78-21, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral Comprehensive Plan by amending the future land use map from commercial/professional to multifamily residential land use for property described as lots 1 through 6, 9, 10, and 15 through 20, Block 1006, Unit 24, Cape Coral Subdivision. Property located at 1342 through 1348, 1402, 1414 through 1416, and 1502 to 1512 Southeast First Place, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be January 19th, 2022.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 90-21. Madam City Clerk, please read the title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 90-21, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral Comprehensive Plan by amending the future land use map from multifamily residential to single-family residential land use for property described as lots 1 through 58, Block 4186, and Tract A, Block 4186A, all in Unit 59, Cape Coral Subdivision, amending the future land use map from single-family/multifamily to single-family residential land use for property described as lots 1 through 40, Block 4191, Unit 59, Cape Coral Subdivision. Property located southwest of the intersection of Tropicana Parkway West and Northwest 33rd Avenue, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be January 19th, 2022.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 101-21. Madam City Clerk, please read the title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 101-21, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral Comprehensive Plan by amending the future land use map from commercial/professional to multifamily residential land use for property described as lots 15 through 23, Block 3230, Cape Coral, Unit 66. Property located at 1425 Gleason Parkway, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be January 19th, 2022.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 1-22. Madam City Clerk, please read title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 1-22, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 5, Boards and Commissions, Division 12, Youth Council, Section 2-120.49, Youth Council, pertaining to qualifications and responsibilities of Youth Council members, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be January 19th, 2022.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 3-22. Madam City Clerk, please read the title and set the public hearing.
Ordinance 3-22, an ordinance amending City of Cape Coral Ordinance 67-21, which adopted the City of Cape Coral operating budget revenues and expenditures and capital budget for fiscal year 2022 by increasing the total revenues and expenditures by a total of $7,636,604, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be January 19th, 2022.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 5-22. Madam City Clerk, please read the title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 5-22, an ordinance amending Chapter 11, Local Business Tax, Article 1, General Provisions, City of Cape Coral Code of Ordinances, amending Section 11-16, Schedule of Business Taxes, providing that local business taxes are levied and due from vacation rentals operating in the city, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be February 2nd, 2022.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 11, which is unfinished business. 11A is follow-up items for council. Is there any follow-up items? We don't have any listed in the agenda. Any council member have any follow-up items? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to 12A, new business. We have none listed. So we'll move on to item 13, reports from the mayor and council and staff. Councilmember Shepherd, report?
No report.
Councilmember Tate?
Yes, I'd like to express my condolences and the council for the passing of Marilyn Stout's husband, Tony. She's a council member. Also wanted to ask permission to attend the Tallahassee Days with Southwest Florida Chamber and also Washington if and when they open the buildings again.
And that's the Washington location.
Yes, Tallahassee is January 23rd, 24th, and 25th, and Washington is March 14th, 15th, and 16th. And my goal is to do flood insurance work in both of them.
Okay. Councilmember Welsh, report?
No report.
Councilmember Cosner?
Yes, speaking of Washington, the National League of Cities Congressional City Conference is that what you were asking to go to, Councilmember? Yes. Okay. I'd also like to attend as the NLC representative. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Hayden?
Yeah, I'd also like to ask permission to attend Tallahassee Days as well, and then 2 or 3 weeks after that, February 7th, 8th, and 9th, also back to Tallahassee for with the Youth Council, participating in a Florida League of Cities event during those 2 days. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Long, report?
No report.
Councilmember Nelson, report?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, thank you guys so much for allowing me to participate remotely. Unfortunately, COVID has struck my household again, so I really appreciate y'all allowing this. A couple of things. First and foremost, I also would like to attend the Tallahassee Days with the Southwest Florida Chamber and the National League of Cities Conference in March, as I recall going a few years ago with Councilmember Cosden and at the time Councilmember Welsh, the female version, and it was a very wonderful conference and we got a lot out of it. So I also would like to ask permission for that. And then lastly, as many of you know, we'll be hosting Breakfast Taco Tuesday on the 18th, and I would welcome any assistance any of you could give me. I have 2 celebrity chefs coming, possibly a third. I know that Councilmember Tate said she would help. The big thing that we will need help with is putting on gloves and masks and helping us roll tacos. So if you guys are available, it's a fun morning. You get to meet a lot of the staff and a lot of great people in the community. So I'd appreciate it if any of you would like to volunteer. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Also, the first week of February, I'll be attending the Florida League of Cities event, and we have a meeting, I believe, on that Wednesday. So I will probably won't physically be here that particular week, but I will try to participate remotely. I believe that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm not exactly sure of the dates.
I think it's the 8th and 9th.
8th and 9th. Yeah. So I know I have a meeting on Monday up there, so I'll be going up early Monday morning. Also have some meetings on Wednesday afternoon. So my goal is to try to get those meetings completed so I could participate in the meeting remotely on that particular day. All right. And the only report, I attended the Cape Coral Construction Industry Association Board induction ceremony on December 16th, and that's the only thing that I have. Madam City Attorney, report.
I have no report.
Mr. Hernandez, report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to request that City Council consider coming in on January 12th, 2022 at 2:00 p.m. in executive session for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining.
Okay. And do we have any issues with that? It's a, we had it on a calendar already, but I don't think it was formally announced, so I think that's why we're doing that. So any issues with anybody on that particular day? Okay. Anything else, Mr. City Manager?
No, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Time and place of future meetings, we have an executive session. A shade meeting will be held in Conference Room 220A on Wednesday, January 12th, 2022 at 2 p.m. for collective bargaining. Meeting is closed to the public pursuant to Section 447.605 of the Florida statute. And also, we have a committee of the whole meeting scheduled on Wednesday, January 12th as well, 2022 at 3 p.m. here in council chambers. Is there a motion for adjournment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.